Welcome to Safari Live, and we're following a mating pair of lions. It looks like the amber-eyed Nkahuma female and one of the Birmingham boys. And it's great to be back in the bush, although I have been in the bush for a few days, but great to be back on Jeandre. I'm Brent Smith. I have Jeandre, who's also back from leave, on drive with me, and we are in a very thick block at the moment, trying to keep up with these lions. I'm trying to show you where they're going, and I'm going to try to stick with them. Unfortunately, it is very, very thick here. But remember, if you want to ask any questions, hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter or email questions@wildearth.tv. As you can see, we're not in our normal vehicle. We are in the Mahindra. I think this one has been named. What did Jamie name this one? I can't remember. It is a little bit longer than our normal vehicles, so a little bit more challenging to keep up with the animals, especially when we're surrounded by this wall of monkey orange. No, it was named Maggie, I've been told. So Maggie the Mahindra, and Jeandre and Brent, and of course out in the other vehicle. Watch the aerial, Jeandre. Are we good? Out in the other vehicle is Jamie and Bryan, and in final control is Louise and Kirsten. Now I've lost sight of these lions for a second, but unfortunately they are heading towards a more open area. But while we follow the biggest of the big cats, Jamie's got the biggest member of Africa's Big Five.
We do indeed, and we're not going to quite have the same volume levels that Brent has started off his afternoon with, and that's because we have a herd of rather nervous little elephants around us. Little elephants, not so little elephants. That's a little elephant that you're watching there, and this is probably about the best view that we've had of them since we first joined the sighting. Yes, the elephants are very, very uncomfortable with our presence, and that is because it is so incredibly windy. They're not uncomfortable with our presence, actually. They're just uncomfortable in general. So that's why we are speaking nice and softly and making sure that we keep an exceptionally respectful distance. But good afternoon to all of you. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon we have the wonderful Bryan on camera, and of course the ever-popular Thumb is joining us along for the ride once again. Now don't forget to send through all of your questions, and let's see if we can't make the most of an interesting afternoon in terms of the weather options. It's very, very windy. This morning I was out walking with Herbert and with Dave, and we made sure that we stayed in the most open areas that we could find, just because, as our elephants are giving us a clear indication, most of the animals out here don't really appreciate a gusty day. They get a bit nervous, they can't smell so well, there's constant rustling which makes them jumpy, and even for our biggest of the big, for whom there's not too much that is a threat out here, barring the lions that Brent is with, but even then it's very unusual for lions in this area to hunt elephant. So they pretty much know that they are safe and secure, but regardless are not terribly happy. This old girl, the mother of this little calf that we're watching now, she's been the most relaxed around us, and that's because in terms of the way that the road curved, we were downwind of her when we made the approach, which meant she could smell us coming as well as hear us, whereas the rest of her herd, they could only hear us, they could hear the rumbling, and what they just did was move away. We're not going to try and stick with these ellies. This is probably going to be the best view that we'll get. We're going to carry on, see what else we can find. In the meantime, Brent doing a fantastic job of keeping up with the big cats.
Jamie's being very kind. I don't know if it's a fantastic job, but we are keeping up. I'm just trying to jump up ahead of them now so we can have a look. I'm hoping they don't go into this river system in front of us. I think she's heading towards quarantine. She's doing a big loop. She's really, really hungry. Oh no, don't go in there. And we actually, before we went live, she chased dwarf mongoose unsuccessfully. And you can see even the big boy is quite hungry. But that is not a good place they're going, especially not if you're in Maggie the Mahindra. We will see if we can stick with them. Now, I'm not sure how often you guys have seen them over the last day, and is this like day one of mating? To me, it looks like it's possibly towards the end of mating, just judging from their bellies and how hungry they are, but I could be completely wrong. So, if you guys know when was the first time they were seen mating or seen together like this, was it a day ago, was it 3 days ago, please let me know. And again, hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter, or use the email address questions@wildearth.tv. So I'm just trying to peer into this river system and see if I can spot them. I think we're going to have to try go around to the other side, because I'm afraid Maggie is not quite like Wendy and Rusty or Jigger. Maggie won't make it through there. Or will she? No, she won't. I'm only joking. Maggie definitely won't make it through there. She's a bit long. So they've gone into this little river system. I'm just going to go down to the bottom and get down into it. We're definitely not going to get through it. I think they've gone across. Don't want to rush around to the other side too quickly in case they decide to pop back down. Just going to have a quick look down the riverbed. And there's no sign of any lions. I think they have crossed, and the only place I'm going to be able to cross is quite far back down. So while we try get ourselves out of this riverbed and around to the other side, let's go see what Jamie's at.
While Brent attempts to maneuver Maggie the Jeandre out of the riverbed and up the other side, we've left our elephants and we're just bumbling along for the afternoon. I wasn't around this morning. I mean, I was around this morning. I was on foot this morning, but I wasn't listening to the Game Drive channel. So I'm not 100% sure what updates were out there. It sounds as though it was a relatively quiet morning for all of the lodges. I think we're just going to meander and see what we can see. Now, the disadvantage to this weather, of course, is that because it's not hot, our sort of initial steps on every afternoon is to at least do one pass around the water holes. And since most animals are not feeling pressured to go and drink, most of them are going to try and hide away while they can. And everything's going to be lying down, hiding behind the trees. But as those lions show us, it is really pleasant weather for cat viewing because they're up and about, it's not too hot, and there's always the chance that we could bump into a leopard somewhere. I believe that Herbert thinks Karula is somewhere around the Gowrie repeater. We're on the western edge of Jeandre doing a little bit of a search. From what I've heard, she crossed south sometime last night, but you never know with Karula. She has a tendency to change direction more often than the wind does on a day like today. She may well decide to pop back and pay us a visit. Now, there's a couple of guests staying at the Voyatella and Gallagher lodges, so our next door neighbors that are regular viewers of the show, and they are exceptionally excited to see Queen Karula for the first time in the flesh, along with her two little cubs. And just on the subject of our leopards, to give the update for those of you who missed this morning's sunrise safari, it looks as though Nkanyeni has probably lost one of her cubs. It's a very, very sad situation. She's been seen a couple of times without them, which is not, or without one of them, which is not itself an absolute sort of final conclusive knowledge that she has lost one of them. There's always the chance that the other is still alive and is just moving about on its own for a while, maybe went off and explored without Mum. But unfortunately, it looks as though we might need to start preparing ourselves for that possibility. Sorry. What I thought was a leopard cub track is actually just a very blurry civet track. And so blurry I don't think I can even show you with in this sort of afternoon light, just because it's so dim and grey and a little bit flat. Now, just a quick answer to HSP Gentleman, who is a new viewer, and welcome to our Sunset Safari. It is fantastic to have you on board, as it always is for all of our viewers, and you might even find yourself becoming somewhat addicted to these live safaris. You wanted to know how we're managing to film this. Well, this I can help you with. That is because we take the vehicle around, we try and find the animals for you, and we tell you a little bit about them. But basically, the man doing all of the hard work is a man called Bryan, sitting behind me, and we have a fantastically talented camera department. And what they do is they sit up a little bit above where we are, and they've got a camera on a fluid head setup, and they are able to have pretty much a 360-degree range of vision around the vehicle. So it's Bryan filming. Beyond that, I'm afraid to tell you that I couldn't begin to explain the technology behind how we broadcast what we broadcast. It is 100% live, which is phenomenal when you think that we are in the middle of the African bush. But it is broadcast live through an antenna that sticks up at the top of the vehicle, and then that bounces the signal magically to a repeater, which then bounces the signal to somewhere, and then a satellite somewhere else, which I think is in the UK, and then that bounces it across the world. It really is the most incredible aspect of the technology and the way in which the team of SafariLIVE, the team of WildEarth, have managed to make technology work for us. While we go off and find you something interesting to look at and to talk about, it seems as though Brent has managed very successfully to maneuver Maggie the Mahindra, that was beautifully alliterative, out of the river and around to the lions.
Well, fortunately, they've decided to take a little bit of respite, and it looks to me that she might be trying to get away from him, and he's sticking to her. They're both really hungry, and as I said, we just saw her, before we went live, chase dwarf mongoose, and that's not something you see a lion chase too often. And they are looking very, very hungry, so we're definitely going to stick with them today. I'm hoping that they might go off hunting, or something might stumble into them in this windy weather. Well, a big SafariLIVE welcome to Pallavi, who's a new viewer. Hi, Pallavi, and welcome to the Nkahuma Lioness and Birmingham Boy. Now, Pallavi's wondering, what is the duration between what lions feed? Now, we can't really see while they're lying down at the moment, but they've got quite a concave belly at the moment. Generally, on average, over a month, they eat probably about 8 kilograms of meat per day, and that's for a female. A male, a little bit more, 12 to 15. But they will only normally eat every couple of days. So it can be sort of as, depending on the size of what they catch every day, something small. Oh, she's up again. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful lioness. And there we go, we can see that empty belly, quite concave, especially around the hips. Oh, not moving far. And you can see they're definitely a mating pair at the moment. Oh, a little bit of growl. Oh, let's just reverse a little bit so we can get a better view. Sorry, Pallavi, back to your question. Normally, as I said, it's probably once every 2 or 3 days. It can be as regular as every day, depending on the size of what they catch. And it can even go as long as 10 days. But they're not the best hunters. Now, on average, you're looking at about a success rate of about 12 to 13%. There we go. So when, Jeandre? Is that good? You're looking at a success rate of around 12 to 15%. So only sort of every 1.5 times out of 10 that they chase something, will they actually catch it. Now, of course, if they had a 100% success rate, there'd be no other animals left out in the bush. You can see on her ears are flicking, And if you look carefully, there's hundreds of little biting flies around her ears. And they can cause quite a bit of irritation to the animals out here. And they're not exclusively on the cats, they're on almost everything. And they are little blood-sucking flies called stable flies. In other parts of Africa and other parts of the world, relatives of them, and in some cases the exact same species, cause great discomfort to domestic animals and actually can transmit some diseases to domestic animals. With the wild animals, they're immune to the diseases transmitted by the stable fly. Of course, amply named, when you have stables and lots of animals congregated in one place, you're going to get lots of flies. They breed in the feces of animals. Oh, there we go. A good leg rest. Now, you're not supposed to have favorites out in the bush, but you always do. And this particular lioness is definitely my favorite out of all the Nkahuma ladies. We call her Amber Eyes, for those who are new. And she's got absolutely exquisite eyes. Slightly different color from the other lionesses. Sorry, I've just noticed something going on behind. I'm going to move forward a second. There's a gabar goshawk that's killed a bird and is being bombed by a drongo. The drongo stopped. Oh, this is going to be quite tough without a monitor. Okay, so Jeandre, we're looking at that termite mound. Now, if we go down to the right of that termite mound, there's a dead stump. Just beyond that, there's a goshawk fighting with a bird on the ground. You don't have visual from there, okay. Well, the lions are having a snooze. Let's just try edge a little bit closer. And it's an incredible little acceptor, which is a bird of prey. And they mostly feed off other birds. And I just saw this flash, and it looked like it grabbed a bird. And the drongo is another bird. It's a type of flycatcher that really harasses predatory birds, and it's seriously bomb-shelling the little gabar goshawk. Now, the reason I know it was a gabar goshawk is they got a very distinct white rump. Other than that, they're sort of gunmetal grey. So we can keep an eye on the lions. They don't look like they're going anywhere. So I think while the lions were snoozing, a kill took place. I don't want to get too close, because otherwise that little goshawk will abandon what it's killed. I'm just going to stop a little bit further away and try to see if we can spot it. So it was flapping around on the ground with its kill. I'm just going to stop here for a second. Now, it could have flown off with its kill in a very low manner. It was just in here, just beyond this little dead stump here. Now, that chee-chee-chee-chee, you're probably not going to be able to hear it in this wind. That's the drongo expressing its disgust that a predator is around. Now, they're quite quick and quite aggressive birds, so they're able to sort of get out of the way of these little predatory birds, but they spend a lot of their time harassing. Okay, let's have one quick look on the other side of this termite mound. As I said, I don't want to get too close because it might scare the goshawk into leaving its hard-fought prey. Now, with most of the predators, they're not that successful. As I said, often 8-9 attempts will yield nothing. And if he has managed to catch something like a dove, that's a massive meal for that little bird. Okay, he's gone. He might have even dragged it on the ground. I've seen him do that before, into a thicket. But I don't want to go any closer. I don't want to disturb in case it is there on the ground. But what I can do, and so all I saw was a puff of feathers as I was watching the lions. And fortunately, I have my bird book here. I'll just keep checking. And it was a beautiful little bird. G for goshawk. There we go. There are the goshawks. And it's not that page. It's not that page either. It's the bigger gospels. Here we go. Little sparrow. Gabar. How's that there, Jeandre? So there we go. That's what he looks like. So he's quite small, about this length of a ruler, 30 centimeters, and only weighs 164 grams. But I'm trying to find a flying shot. There we go. So that's what I saw very distinctly as he flew past, that white rump. And also his size would have given my identification. And to what he killed, I'm assuming it was a dove, which is about the same size as him, a little bit smaller, just from a puff of grey feathers that I saw. So we're going to head back towards the lions. While we do that, Jamie has got the largest of the corkscrew antelope around.
Largest of the corkscrew antelope, but in this case all females, so not really clearly demonstrating exactly what it was that, oh sorry, my game drive channel was too loud, that Brent was trying to tell you. So the kudu has the most extraordinary, the male kudu has the most extraordinary spiraling horns that are incredibly distinctive. In this case we've just got a few of them browsing away in the distance. It is incredibly windy out here, as we mentioned before, so they are feeling particularly shy and essentially trying to hide away as much as possible. And that being said, it was the first, I think it's the first mammal we've seen, in fact the first heartbeats that we've seen since we left the elephant, just because everything's trying to shelter away from this weather. Look at how well they disappear in between the vegetation. That's only because we've got this camera and the incredible zoom that we're able to see this female as clearly as we do. And it gives us a nice perspective as to why it is that the kudu's stripes work so well in terms of breaking up their body outline. And just look at that. It kind of separates the top and makes it look, and not to us of course with our primate vision, our very good primate vision, but imagine if you're a predator that doesn't see as clearly as we do and is not so vivid color vision, and then imagine trying to spot. And you can kind of get an idea of just how well those stripes work as to break up the outline of the animal. They also serve to make it one of the most attractive of all of our antelope species, with their huge ears and their big eyes, constantly on alert. She knows we're watching her. I don't think she's too concerned. She's just making sure that we don't mean any kind of threat. And what animals on these sorts of days will often do is they'll try and feed into the wind. So they'll find where the wind is blowing, the direction that the wind is blowing, and walk into it. And what that means is that it blows the scent of any kind of threat towards them, because if they did it the other way around, they run the risk of bumbling into, for example, the lions that Brent has got, which is not far from us at all. And albeit, there you go, you're saying that their stripes look just like tree branches, well, particularly at this time of year, since the tree branches have all lost their leaves, they've gone into a state of dormancy. And you're right, that's exactly what they look like. Very clever little camouflage method. I'm fluttering around them, and I've just lost sight of it now. Or is it still there? Fluttering around them. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Thank you, Bryan. Perfect timing. Well done. Pick a direction, Drongo. Making Bryan's life very difficult. So fluttering about them, I believe that there was some Drongo dive bombing the goshawk that you saw with Brent. Well, the Drongo also very, very clever little birds in that they pick the larger animal species like the kudu and they follow them around, waiting for them to sort of disturb any of the insects that might be, in this case, or at this time of year, hiding out in the vegetation. The reason I went completely silent there was just I heard a very strange sound, and I just wanted to listen for it again, because it sounded almost like an alarm call. Now, the one thing about this weather is that it might make us work a little bit harder in order to find you things to look at. it's time to go, I think. There's something happening. It's quite far away from us, but it is still on Jeandre. Just trying to work out exactly where it is. It's either towards Twin Dams or Weaver's Nest, but there are some alarm calls happening there. We're going to race across there, see what's going on. While we do, I'm not sure if it's a zebra fight though or zebra alarm calls, but while we rush over, let's go back to Brent and his big cats.
We've got big cats doing what big cats do best. Snooze. They snooze on average about 20 hours a day. So they'll walk 20 minutes, sleep 20 minutes, and then sometimes, quite often, they'll sleep for a few hours at a time. So very, very exciting to sit with sleeping cats because there's always the potential that something might happen. And my favorite long time with sleeping cats was with the Nkahuma Pride. And sorry guys, just sort of Mike and some members of the community and his wife Candice, who's the general manager of Jeandre, and their daughter are about to join us in the sighting. So if you hear a little girl go, Brent, it is Kaylin. She's my other girlfriend. We have a very special relationship, young Kaylin and myself. But as I was saying, so they sleep quite a lot, and it's quite fortunate that we're in this sort of cold, windy weather, because they're far more likely to be more active in this weather than if it was a blistering 30 degrees Celsius. Now, he's also going to be very aware because of her being an estrus, or even false estrus possibly, and I still haven't heard. When is this the first time we've seen them together, or have we seen them this past week together? Have they been mating? And if you could let me know, hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter, or use the email address questions@wildearth.tv. Now, I definitely think they're going to hunt later. Well, Pallavi, great to hear from you again. Pallavi's wondering, how long is a lion's mating period? How many days? Well, Pallavi, it depends. It's normally about 4 or 5 days. And during that time, unless there's an opportunistic kill, they don't eat. They'll drink water, but generally they just mate for those 4 or 5 days. And it's normally once every 15 minutes. And the fact that they haven't mated in the sort of time we've been with them so far leads me to believe this is probably towards the end of their mating cycle, and that's for a couple of reasons. The fact that she looks like she's trying to run away from him. Secondly, she's very hungry, and thirdly, obviously, that they haven't mated yet. So normally, if you get them in the full swing, it's about every 15 minutes, and it lasts no longer than about a second and a half, 2 seconds. I have seen a lion really go for it, and that was about 10 seconds. And it's quite an aggressive thing. So all cats' penises are barbed. They've got hooks on them, and when they're mating, that's to try ensure insemination of the female. So when they dismount, it actually hurts the female quite a lot, and it can be quite spectacular. She'll growl and snarl and smack him. So to stop that, he bites her on the back of the neck and tries to push her down towards the ground. But at the moment, it's snooze time. Hi Monique, nice to hear from you. Monique's in London. And Monique's filled me in. She's been mating for the past 4 days. So my guesses are correct, just from their behavior, that this is towards the end of the mating, and she's probably trying to escape him and go join the rest of the pride. So what we're going to do is going to move her around a little bit so we can see what she's looking at, which I'm pretty sure her eyes are closed, but it doesn't harm to change up the view when you're with flat cats. And with all animals, you never want to drive directly at them. You want to try to keep oblique angles, go away from them while getting closer, but they have the perception that you're getting further from them. around. And here we go, we can see both of them quite nicely now. Hi, Cecilia. Cecilia is in the United Kingdom, and Cecilia is wondering, is it not possible that she's hungry because the male has thwarted her attempts at hunting and that's why she's so irritated with him? It's probably a combination, Cecilia, but if she was mating properly with him, she also goes off the hunting unless there's an opportunistic sort of stumble upon, something stumbles into them. And so probably not. I think she's irritated because she's now coming to the end of her estrus cycle, and so she doesn't want to mate anymore, and coupled with the fact that she's very hungry from mating for the last few days is the reason she's trying to escape him. Now, he's not quite ready to give up the goes yet, and she will often try to sneak away if he's sleeping quite heavily, but I think he's a bit too alert still for her to escape. Now, in this cold, windy weather, the only thing we can hear is the wind. It is dead quiet out here. I can't hear any birds. I can't hear any insects. And I'm obviously not going to hear too many insects at this time of the year. And now that the wind's picked up a little bit, you can see there's a little bit less air flicking on both of them. The wind will help keep the flies at bay, although it seems like they're living in the male's mane. And he's still flicking profusely. They are incredible, incredible creatures, and amazingly strong. Hello, Afira from Israel. Afira is just letting me know that apparently the youngest in Kahuma was mating with this male, and Amber Eyes was mating with Blondie. And now that's not uncommon with coalition members. Quite often you'll find that the females will mate with sometimes all four of the different coalition members over a period, and the males will actively fight for those mating rights. Now, it has been proven before that in lion culture, a litter of little lion cubs can have, if they're 3 cubs, they can have 3 different fathers. So it's not necessarily the same father that fathered that litter. But it is normally a coalition member. But in parts of Africa, there's been some very, very interesting research recently, or not recently, over the last 10 years, that in some prides, up to 50% of the cubs born to the pride are not to the dominant coalition males. So male lions have different types of strategies to ensure their genetic line is passed on. And the most common one is what we see as a pride male, and it's very seldom a single pride male. It's normally multiple males, a coalition, and that enables them to defend a larger territory. Now, male lions that haven't been able to find coalition members to join with, or didn't start out with brothers, they sometimes employ a very different strategy, and that strategy is the sneaky strategy. So they are constantly nomadic. They never in their life will hold a territory, and they will mate with lionesses sort of on the sly if they manage to get there before the pride males do. So it's not an uncommon lion strategy in parts of Africa. Generally, this area is very heavily dominated by large male lion coalitions. And if we look sort of in the last 10 years, starting with even before the Mapokos, the Clarendon males, West Street males, there were 3 of them, 4 of them. Then the Mapoko, there were 5. Then the Majingalans came, another 5. I think the Matimbas were originally 5. And now we have the Birmingham boys. There were 5. One of the males has passed on due to a wound got hunting buffalo. But now there are 4, and they are very much the dominant male lions here on Djuma and Cheetah Plains and Arathusa. Very exciting. While we wait with patience to see what these flat cats get up to, let's go see how Jamie's search of the southern regions of Djuma is going.
Oh, It's very interesting. I'm starting to wonder whether or not that peculiar sound that Bryan and myself heard while we were with the kudu is not a herd of elephants hiding up in the drainage line somewhere, in the river system somewhere here. Now, elephants have the most incredibly wide range. Excuse me. Just before you came through, I swallowed a bug. Elephants have such a wide vocal range in terms of the sounds that they make, and often they make particularly the little ones, can be incredibly expressive in terms of their feelings, and on a windy day that applies even more so, just in terms of the fact that they're a little bit more than stressed out than usual. So it might be that we were hearing elephants. Their tracks are absolutely everywhere. We know that wind upsets them, and because it's such a windy day, it might have carried the sound far further than it might usually have traveled on a normal day, because I can't find a single cat track anywhere. I can't find actually any other animals anywhere. Heard one or two alarm calls, well, contact calls from grey go away birds, but that's been about it. And as Brent spoke about earlier, it's very, very quiet out here. Hello, Ellies. Before we have a look at the Ellies, there's a daycare in the road, which I don't think is going to stick around. It's quite far away. There we go. And a little... Oh, there's two. I didn't see the second one at all. It went so still. How lovely is that? We've got a pair of daycare foraging together. Most likely a male and a female. There goes female trotting off to look for some cover. And her male companion, not quite so nervous. I think he thinks that if he stays still, he might be invisible still. Oh, there we go. Off he goes. Bounce, 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 bounce. I mentioned that the elephants aren't particularly big fans of this weather at the start of our sunset safari, and I also mentioned that essentially out here they have very, very few predators. The only real predator capable, strong enough and capable enough of taking down an elephant is the lions that you have seen with Brent. And even then, that is exceptionally unusual. So for Randall, who is wondering about how many elephants get taken down by predators in the reserve that we're in 1 year, the answer is very, very few. I would say probably less than 10. It's highly uncommon in this particular part of the world, possibly even less than that. I think it was elephants that were vocalizing earlier. That's what we heard. And I think it's because they're being not plagued, but there is a huge bull at the back that I saw very briefly, made a brief appearance. There's a cow as well, and two squabbling males at the back. But I think that's the vocalization that we heard. It just sounded distorted because of the wind. So Randall, in terms of causes of death, death by predators for the elephants of the Kruger National Park and beyond is very rare. Far more common is death by old age, and in the next few months it's also going to be death through malnutrition, just because we're in such a serious drought at the moment that they're not going to have enough food to sustain all of them. And I have noticed some of the elephants are starting to lose condition a bit. They are starting to look a little bit thin, which is natural at this time of year anyway. They have to work harder, they have to move further in order to find food. But it's even more pronounced during this dry season, because the wet season could hardly be termed a wet season this particular year. So to Randall, not all that many. Elephants are far more commonly killed by people as well throughout Africa. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about that at all in the area that we are in. Elephant poaching in this particular area in South Africa, but in this particular area, is exceptionally rare, and I'm really hoping that we will keep it that way. Wesley, I mentioned at the start of the Sunset Safari, and I'd like to just say a warm welcome to you on our sunset drive. I did mention that we were keeping our distance from the elephants this afternoon. You wanted to know whether or not they are afraid of the safari vehicle. They can be. They very, very seldom are, though, and that's because they've all grown up with game drive vehicles, with safari vehicles coming and going throughout their lives. Hello, big girl. The reason that I'm being extra cautious today is because it's windy. It's not so much that they're afraid of us, but sudden noises and unexpected smells have the effect of startling them, regardless of whether it's a buffalo that surprises them or it's a vehicle driving past. It's just important that we make sure that we are respectful of their feelings. This herd is far more relaxed than the one that we had at the start of the sunset safari. They're much, much calmer. But I'm not going to push that or test that in any way on a day like today. There's lots of things that we're factoring in when we're taking an animal's mood into account. And a lot of it is just pure observation. But so often we know, if we go out on a day like today, we know that the elephants are going to be a bit miserable. It's one of the big reasons why when I was walking this morning, I was careful to keep to the more open areas. Because just like the elephants, the wind robs us of our hearing and of our sense of smell, which is one of the two of the senses that you actually rely on quite heavily when you're walking in the bush. And because this elephant herd is a little bit more relaxed, what I'm going to do is reposition and find us a better lookout point so that we can have a look and see if we can't see across the river system. But while we watch our elephant munch away, James, you wanted to know how much of the landscape will be shaped and changed by the elephants. Well, James, they're known as keystone species. In other words, they can shape, as you suggested, shape the nature of the environment around them, and that depends on their numbers, it depends on their access to food and water. There's a lot of different circumstances that play a role in the amount that they affect the area that they're in. But an overpopulation of elephants in an area, or an overconcentration of elephants, can and will convert a woodland to a grassland in the space of a few years, particularly in the dry season where they're going to be concentrating more and more on the trees rather than the grasses, just because the trees have more nutritional value. So, James, it depends on whether or not we get rain at the start of the rainy season this year. That will certainly help to improve the impact that the elephants have. I love that sound. You hear that sound, that beautiful rumble that elephants use to communicate to each other. And I think we were hearing a variation on that when we were all the way at Treehouse Dam. We're now at Twin Dams, and I think the wind just carried it through and distorted it a little bit. That deep rumbling contact call and comfort call. So, James, as we stay with these ellies, we can talk a bit more about their impact on their environment as we go further. But for now, let's go back over to Brent. I'm going to reposition to get you a better view. Let's see how the lions are doing.
And as you can see, there's great action happening here as the lions don't move at all. So it is always worth playing the patience game with lions, especially lions that are this hungry. Now, the fact that she chased a dwarf mongoose earlier makes me think that in not too long, hopefully, she might get up and get moving. And because we're in Maggie the Mahindra this evening, oh, I hope you guys, look at that, nice screenshots. You can get the wind blowing through his mane. I, of course, have tried to tame my mane today. It hasn't really worked. And this is because I could not find my hat before I left on drive today. Well, I had a fox hat, and Fox Hat's wondering, did I not have a time for a haircut while I was away? Well, I had plenty of time, I just chose not to. It says, Jeandre behind camera, whose hair is longer than mine and hasn't been washed in about 3 years. But it's very smelly one day. But it's nice and warm in winter to have long hair to keep the head insulated in our bitterly cold temperatures. Of course, most of you living abroad, away from the sunny climes of southern Africa, know far more about cold than I do. And I'd like to keep my experience of the cold to the limited cold of the low fells. I think it's about all I can handle, and the thought of snow sort of sends shivers down my spine. And we're just going to move around a little bit, change the angle of the lions so we can have a bit of a different view. And I am hoping they are going to get moving in not too long, but at the moment they are completely flat. Hi Aaron in New Zealand. Aaron's wondering if James did my hair this afternoon. Well, see, Aaron, unfortunately, I don't trust James with hair, since it's been a few years since he's had any experience dealing with hair. So, no, I did it myself. Having had long hair for quite some time, I'm quite well versed in how to deal with it. Oh, over the bump. I'm just going to change that. There we go. As you can see, the only thing that's happened is the male has lifted his head slightly, but Jamie's got some hippolymph on the move.
Well, we've just had the most extraordinary event occur. An entire enormous herd of elephants has just come and joined the herd that we were with before. But they were moving so fast, they sprinted through this river system. They've now all gathered on the opposite side. I've lost track of where our original herd members are and whether or not they've all disappeared. But it was absolutely fascinating to watch them as they came sprinting past us. And it just goes to show that all of the elephants are feeling terribly upset at the moment in terms of the wind. They came in at such a speed that even the enormous bull that I was going to show you, the one that was causing trouble, even he disappeared as quickly as possible to try and move out of the way of several rapidly moving tons of elephant. There's the female with the really interesting cross tusks. Her left tusk curves straight under her jaw. Hard to see at this angle, but they really are totally unique, and it's made her instantly recognizable. And just like that, the whole herd of elephants has almost completely disappeared. It was phenomenal. And that was what that growling was all about, that rumbling was all about. They were talking to each other, and Annabella, who is 6 years old, I'm so glad that you are out on safari with us. I hope that you've been having fun, and that I hope you're enjoying the elephants and the lions as much as we are. Now, Annabella, no. When an elephant growls like that, it doesn't mean that it's angry. Now, when an elephant is really, really angry, what they'll often do is they will make a sound called trumpeting, and sometimes they even scream or make a screaming sound. But no, that rumble is them talking to each other. And can you imagine, they're very big animals, so they must have really, really deep voices. And that's the elephants talking to each other through those deep, deep growling sounds that you were hearing. And they're not cross with each other at all. Often, it's the mommy, the big mommy of the group, that is calling her family to all come together, so calling her sisters and her daughters and her great-granddaughters and her granddaughters to come and follow her. So often it's just that she's communicating to them. Sometimes a female elephant will even growl or make the sound that sounds like she's growling in order to comfort the other elephants. If they're feeling a bit scared, if they're afraid, then she'll do that to comfort them. Bryan, did you hear that this time? Something just barked. Now, I know we've been through this before, but I promise you this time actually something really did alarm call. It sounded like an inyala or kudu. I'm just waiting to hear if it happens again, or if it's just because they're on edge, which is making them vocalize unnecessarily. So maybe just a twig fell next to it and it went bah, because it got a fright. And our whole elephant herd is left now. Incredible, they just raced through here. Now we know that our lovely breeding herds are led by the largest females in the group, but Bethany's got a really good question about the bachelor herds. So obviously they don't have a matriarch to tell them where to go. Very often elephant bulls, because they are social creatures, when they leave the safety of their herd, they'll often go and form a group of bachelors to have the comfort and the company that they provide. Bethany is curious about which elephant in that group would lead them. Would there be an elephant that decides where they move or what they do? Well, generally, the bachelor herds have at least one older bull that not looks after the rest, but is generally the one he's almost kind of moving on his own and doing his own thing, and the other young bulls are following along behind in his shadow, so to speak, and they learn a lot from his behavior. From his
Smells infinitely better than ours. She could just be testing, look at that, testing the wind. Trying to smell if there's a snack downwind. Or upwind, sorry. Whatever it is not that enticing. As the lids get heavy, the head gets heavy. Well, hello Isabella. Isabella is 5 years old. Welcome on safari with us this afternoon, Isabella. Now, Isabella would like to know if the lions like to lie on dirt. Isabella, lions like to lie on whatever is around. Grass, dirt, and if they're really hot, sometimes even in mud. But there's no concrete or tarmac anywhere around here apart from the odd airstrip. So normally lions just lie in the dirt or in the grass. As you can see, these ones look very happy in the dirt, curled up from the cold wind, and the big male is lying flat with his face even in the dirt. He's not even using his paw as a rest. And the wind is actually picking up quite a lot at the moment. So the word lion is quite an old word. It has its origins in the Romance languages, in Latin and ancient Greek. And in Latin it was Leo, and of course that's where the lion's scientific name comes from, Panthera leo. And in ancient Greek it was Leon, L-E-O-N. So that's probably where the modern word lion came from, the Romantic languages. And as far as Israeli viewers, There's also a theory that it could have had some origins in the Hebrew word lavi, L-A-V-I. Now, over the course of the last years, there's been about 12 different subspecies of lions that have been described, and recently, majority of those subspecies have been completely debunked. There was the Barbary lion, the Cape lion, the Kruger or the Transvaal lion, and it turns out genetically that most of these lions are exactly the same. The only distinct genetic population from African lions that holds none of the same markers is the Asiatic lion that lives in the Gir forest of India. Now, Harvey is wondering, how does a lioness choose her mate? Now, that's quite an interesting question. So there has been some research done recently that the darker the male lion's mane is, the more testosterone he tends to have, and therefore females tend to be more predisposed towards that. But being out here, what have I got there, Jeandre? A fly. Thank you. I just see Jeandre behind the camera going like this. Anyway, and he looks strange at the best of times. But as we're saying, so although in the wild I've seen both dark-maned and blonde-maned lions, if we take Jeandre and Hairy Belly was the much darker of the two, but seemed to be subservient to a Jeandre. And one must remember that with these lion coalitions, the juvenile batelier up above, actually it's a hooded vulture, I beg your pardon. It's got a bit of a short tail. Now, they've probably spotted these lions because I actually saw a batelier swoop over us a bit earlier, but they've obviously thought, maybe there's a chance at a kill, and of course there isn't. Oh, look, there's a confused white-backed vulture behind Jeandre. I'll just move the car a little bit. He's actually landed in the tree thinking that the lions have a kill. Now, it could be chance, cold, windy weather, that they've seen the lions sleeping, they think there might be a killer around, so they've decided to land. Let me just move the car. Hi, Elizabeth. Oh, there's vultures above us. Elizabeth would like to know, are the birds here mainly predator or prey? Now, as with most creatures in the world, you will always have more prey species than predators. If there was more predators, there would be no prey. And I'm just trying to get us into a spot. And he's actually spotted the vulture. And he was looking up at it. But he's decided it's not that interesting. There we go, watching. Now, lions watch vultures, so do hyenas. And he's trying to work out, has that vulture spotted a free meal for me or not? But I think that vulture has spotted you, sir. So you can see, sometimes if you watch lions over a long period of time and they see vultures, even in the distance, dropping down to the ground, they'll actually take off at a jog after the vultures. I'm just going to try and move us again so we can see where those vultures are landing. Oh, sorry, big boy. I'm trying to avoid the thorn tree. Oh, look, here we go, Jeandre. This is now time to test your skills. So he's come in for a closer look to see if there's a kill here. And it's a white-backed vulture. Don't drop a bomb, please. You can see it surfing the wind. Isn't that amazing? So those vultures, probably from sometimes up to a kilometer in the sky, have spotted these lions. And he's watching them land. Now, 2 of them have already landed. Now, this is where vultures sometimes become quite funny. Because now that the fact that 2 have come to check out these lions and found nothing, but it's getting towards the time of the day where they would roost anyway, you sometimes find that all of a sudden you can have 30 vultures around here and no kill whatsoever. So they've landed in a nice big knobthorn tree just along the way there. There they are. Now, if you're a vulture this is possibly the worst weather possible because you're unable to find those warm air thermals that are rising, so you actually struggle to get up. There has been a little bit of sunshine during the day that they might have been able to ride the thermals a bit, but now they have dropped down to be bitterly disappointed to a group of, or a pair of mating lions, or end of mating lions, rather than a lovely decomposing buffalo carcass. Now, the lions have not moved a muscle, but we'll go back to them. So they seem to be very used to our normal filming vehicles, our little short wheelbases, but because we've got actually the Bushwalk's backpack sitting up here, you watch them, sometimes they get a little bit of a fright because that aerial is quite a bit higher sitting on top of a game drive seat than it is normally. Can I go left hand down, or are you going to be in the thorns? We good? Oh, Jeandre is nearly in the thorns. There we go. So there we go. You can see the lions watching that aerial, but now that it stops wobbling when we stop moving, so our other aerials are far more solid. It's back to snooze, and while we stay with the snoozing lions, Jamie's got a whole bunch of different things to show you.
In this case, two different things to show you. Some impala and one Inyala with an identity crisis. So for our newer viewers who are joining us for the first time, the magnificent antelope with the thick, shaggy, dark fur and the spiraling horns is a cousin of the kudu that we saw earlier, and is a male Nyala, N-Y-A-L-A, Nyala. And the reason I say he has an identity crisis is because he's found himself in, believe it or not, even though we can't see one of them right now, they've all vanished. Oh, there we go. There's two of them. He found himself in a herd of impala, which just goes to show any bolt hole in a storm is acceptable. And the natural herding instinct of these antelope, particularly on days like today, where as many eyes and ears on the lookout as possible is absolutely a good thing, he's decided to join up with this bachelor herd of very chilly impala. Poor chaps. And it is really very cold. All of the animals sheltering as much as possible while they feed for the afternoon. Now, when I first approached here, I was hoping that the Nyala might be putting on a bit of a display in terms of his sort of doing the very, very... Sorry, guys. I just heard a distracting update on the Game Drive channel. But yes, they do a little bit of a dance, a mating display, in terms of intimidating their rivals. But Wayne would like to know, on that subject, are there any antelope in this area that communicate through stamping their hooves in this way similar to the white-tailed deer of North America? And my apologies, Wayne, none of those sentences came out all the way I intended to. Occasionally, the embattled Inyala or kudu might stamp their feet once or twice, but no, there's not a major emphasis on foot stamping as far as I know in terms of communication. They might stamp their feet as a method of intimidation, but I have never experienced or watched any of our antelope species communicating with each other through foot stamping. Some of them do have glands in between their feet, which I suppose in a way is a form of communication, since they have scent glands in between the halves of the hooves, and they will use that to either mark territory or just scent mark in general. So that's one way that they use their feet, and they might scrape their hooves a little bit, particularly wildebeest. Blue wildebeest do that very regularly. So I suppose you could call that communicating, but I know that that's not really what you meant. There was also some kudu around here, but they've completely disappeared. So for now we can have a look at our impala that are clearly absolutely freezing. Now an impala in summertime or on a nice warm winter's day is a sleek brownish color, not this deep red that our impala have taken on at the moment. They've fluffed up their fur and they are attempting to warm themselves in any way. It's like us getting goosebumps. And you can see what we mean about the antelope species not really wanting to be, or any of the general game species, not really wanting to be anywhere near the open areas, which includes roads in this case. And that's just them sheltering from the wind. Oh, we've got another member of the antelope family about to wander across towards this herd. And that is a male waterbuck, big waterbuck bull, disappearing in between the trees with his white ring on his rump just visible, ducking his head and dodging with his horns. A magnificent antelope, much larger than the impala that we've been looking at before, and in fact much larger than our Nyala bull as well in terms of just sheer bulk. And this is a particularly big waterbuck bull. Like the impala, the Nyala, the kudu, and the waterbuck, all of these are antelope species where only the males have horns. And off he goes. I'll go back to see if I can't get you another view, but I think he's hidden away. Oh, it's interesting. I mean, while we're watching the way that the animals behave, our beards actually commented about the fact that the impact of the wind has surprised him on these drives, and the way that it affects the predator and prey relationship is not something we really consider until we're out here every day, twice a day. And I know exactly what you mean, because the truth is, as human beings, we've sort of
opportunity arises, being the biggest of the big cats in our area. Now, they're also the only cat species that shows massive sexual dimorphism, and that is very unusual. So you can obviously see the difference between a male and a female because of the mane. Now, I wonder if anyone out there can tell me one of the reasons why lions are the only ones that show such great sexual dimorphism between the sexes. Now, if you have an idea, send me an email on questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. Why do you think male and female lions look so different? Now, I'm going to rule out some obvious ones for you here. A lot of people are going to say fighting, which is obviously very important, but it's a little bit more complicated than fighting, and that's your hint to the question. So if you know that, remember hashtag SafariLIVE or use the email address questions@wildearth.tv. Now, earlier it was quiet as anything, and slowly but hopefully they're going to move their way towards us. I can hear some arrow-marked babblers and a grey go-away bird. Now, they'll start looking for a place to roost, especially in this cold weather, a little bit earlier than they normally would. Let me see if I can spot them. They're still a bit far off. We'll wait for them to get a bit closer. Now, the lions have barely moved an inch. Now, hi, Jesse, and welcome on the drive. Jesse's saying we always talk about how the females choose the fittest males, and she wants to know what stops a male lion mating with a genetically inferior female. Now, a male lion, in terms of its sort of evolutionary aspects, it'll mate with as many females as possible, therefore has the biggest chance of having the most cubs, and having the most cubs, therefore the most chance of 1 or 2 or 5 surviving. So with genetically inferior females, it's a very interesting question, but if you think about it, I think the male lion will still take the chance. It's still a chance her cubs might survive, because even if she is a genetically inferior female, she might be part of a pride, so there's always a chance that the pride structure will help her raise those cubs, even if she isn't as strong as other members in the pride. So they'll be strong as a whole rather than as an individual. Now, in most cases, genetically inferior animals, in a lot of cases, oh, we have a scratch. Very half-hearted one. In a lot of cases, they don't survive beyond cubhood. So they normally die while they're still quite young. So you won't find too many weak genetics in the big cats that have survived to adulthood and survived to being able to rear cubs themselves. I almost want to go take a blankie and put it over the lions, but that would be severely ill-advised. As though they look like nice, timid kitty cats, they can change into snarling bundles of pure destruction in a matter of seconds. And back to snooze. Now, it's so incredible how we've watched these Birmingham boys grow. They were very young when I first arrived here, and they've now reaching their prime. They're about 6 years old now. 6 to about 8, 9 years old is a lion's prime. But when it's in its prime, it's very unusual that they manage to sort of succeed in holding down territory after that, unless they're in a coalition. A big coalition has a much bigger chance of being dominant over an area for much longer than a sort of a 2-male coalition or a single male lion. In this area where we've got an incredibly high density of lions, you find these big coalitions more and more frequently. I think in other places in Africa, like the Selous Game Reserve, where I've spent quite a lot of time, you're normally there being Miombo woodland, so you don't have that much food availability, and the food is very seasonal and it moves vast areas. You generally find the pride structure themselves are much smaller, and as soon as they get over 6, 7 individuals, they'll split, and generally only one male will take charge of those females. And one must remember that a lot of animal behavior is area specific rather than species specific. So the same lion here will behave very differently if you put them in a different habitat. And that all depends on prey availability, competition with other lions, competition with hyenas. So every ecosystem has its own sort of little nuances that might cause the animals to behave slightly differently. But while we continue to play the patience game with the flat cats, let's go see what Jamie's been up to.
While Brent plays the patience game, we are playing the seek and find game, albeit somewhat unsuccessfully. We do, however, have a really nice sight here, and they're going to fly. I'm going to try going backwards rather, otherwise they're going to fly away. But we've got a really nice example of what hornbills are doing on a day like today to keep warm. It's hilarious. They've got the right idea, Bryan. That's what we should be doing. Okay, I think that's probably going to be as good as it gets. I don't want them to fly away because I want to show you what they're up to. Okay, I don't mean the part where they're raiding the termite mound and eating the termites. We don't really need to be doing that. But what they are doing is making use of the heat that's going to be coming up from that termite mound. Now, you know that the termite mounds are a system of vents that allow the termites to maintain the internal temperature of their homes at around somewhere in the mid-30s. And what that means is that there's very often on these really chilly days, there's warm air rising up from deep underneath the ground, where the constant sort of metabolic activity of the termites, as well as the fungus growing that they do in those termite mounds. Oh, are you exhausted, Hornbill on the right? That was a big yawn. Am I boring you a little bit? You know all of this, of course. But perhaps there are some that don't. And the warm air rising up out of the termite mounds makes for a really nice place to sit if you're a hornbill. Now, I've spoken before about the fact that we often see them first thing in the morning. Well, here we've got them in the middle of the afternoon as well, just because the weather is so thoroughly chilly. Sitting on the top of a termite mound and enjoying the warm air that's rising, and to thank the termites for their hospitality, their kind hospitality, eating them. That's not very polite. You don't come in from the cold into somebody's home and then eat them. That's very rude. But definitely, the one on the hornbill on the right doesn't have the same advantage as the hornbill that's currently munching away, and could not look more miserable if it tried. The longer I look at it, the funnier it gets, because this poor hornbill no longer has a neck. It's puffed up so much and pulled its head right in to try and warm itself up. It's a neckless hornbill. It's just a beak sitting on top of some shoulders. Oh, 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 maybe something interesting there. Doing a little shuffle to warm up. Nope. Tucking back into itself, looking enviously across at its partner. Also trying to shield that slightly bald patch underneath the chin, where birds lose a great deal of their heat from. Whoop. And just like that, it's decided no more sitting and waiting for the chance to feed off the termites. He's going to hop down and be a bit more proactive about life. Hop about and pluck the termites. And of course, in weather like this, the termites that are usually relatively strictly nocturnal, on a day like today when there is no sun, they're quite happily pecking away and catching the termites are quite happily working away at all hours of day and night, because they don't get too hot and they don't struggle in the sun. Our beard shares my interpretation of the hornbills, although perhaps my interpretation, our beard says that they look angry. I always think that they look slightly manic, like the sort of the businessman that's had too much coffee and is got several approaching deadlines, and that's the expression that I see in a hornbill's face, like a sort of quiet desperation, manic desperation. Although I see what you mean, they do often look angry. They look even angrier, our beard, when they are savagely attacking their own reflection in a window, which they do with monotonous regularity. Hornbills are a lot of things, but they're not very good at interpreting when something is their reflection and when it's actually another hornbill. Despite the sort of constant solid impact that they make, they still don't manage to figure out that once a day, when the sun catches the window at the exact angle, that they are not, in fact, attacking an intruder, and they are attacking their own reflection. And this is something I have watched hornbills do day after day after day after day, and there doesn't appear to be much in the way of learning. Yeah, and there's nothing like the solid thunk of a hornbill beak hitting the glass of your window when you're settling down for your afternoon nap in midsummer, because of course at that point our days start at around 3:30. So we're up very early, and we're usually to bed quite late, which means that nap in between is often quite crucial, and I cannot count the number of times I have been woken up by the manic expression of a hornbill intent on destroying the intruder that has entered their life without any warning. Well, I think this hornbill's got exactly the right idea. The warm spot and breakfast, or at least late lunch, provided as well. I like that. So fox hat, I am guessing, is a South African or a African of origin, somewhere from the area where we find hornbills, or a regular visitor to these areas, because fox hat was taught to recognize the different species of hornbills as either banana bills, as our yellow-billed hornbills are, or chili bills, which I assume refer to the slightly thinner bills of the red-billed hornbill. Now, there you go. We've got the banana bills over there. I haven't seen any chili birds that I can show you, or chili bills. Chili-billed hornbills. I'm going to get myself very confused there. And I think we're going to leave our banana bills for now. And funnily enough, I was raised with something very similar, at least in terms of the banana bill. The chili bill was a new one for me, but I do enjoy it. I think it's very descriptive. Let us roll forward. There we go. Let us carry on and go and see if those lion cubs by chance aren't around. And just as we go around the corner of this termite mound, we've spoken about how this is a vent system. It's a ventilation system for a termite mound. Ashley, in answer to your question about how hornbills, not how hornbills, got hornbills on the brain now, how termite mounds or termites cope with extreme heat, since heat does build up in their termite mounds, the answer is they open up a lot of these chimney stacks, and because hot air rises and cold air sinks, it basically creates a nice flow-through current throughout the termite mound and just cools it down. And then when it's slightly colder, on slightly colder days, where are you going, Rusty? Rusty's decided to start rolling backwards without warning. So on slightly chillier days, then they don't need to have as many of their chimney stacks open. It's a really, really clever. They've somehow mastered the physics of air motion and air currents on those hot, hot summer days. We are going to go and hope against hope that the cubs are out and about. I think in this weather, to be 100% honest with you, I don't think they're going to be around, but we're not going to be negative about it. We're going to go and double check. In the meantime, our hungry lions are being sort of still lazy.
As you can see, not much movement happening here. I'm just going to, as we came across, the lioness dropped her head. So I'm going to move forward slightly so we can see him. Say when, Jeandre? There we go. Very flat cats at the moment. Now, lions used to be far more widespread outside of Africa than they are today, and it is almost as a direct consequence of humans and the human development. Now, can you believe that in 480 BC, lions were considered common in Greece, and they used to attack the camel trains that used to come through, but by 300 BC they were almost extinct, and by 100 AD there were none left whatsoever. And the last sort of European population of lions that survived to the Middle Ages, more or less, was in the Caucasus in Europe. That was the last remaining population of lions in Europe. Now, those genetics are completely lost, and there's very interesting sort of debates going on with lion genetics between the Asiatic lion and the African lion. And it's thought that the Barbary lion, which used to occur sort of Morocco and Egypt, was probably more closely related to the Asiatic lion than our lions down here and in the rest of Africa. So there are some genetic tests that are being done on species. I think there's some in captivity in England, in Kent, of all places, that were a gift from the King of Morocco. So they might have that genetic information that's needed. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I personally feel that they're probably more closely related to the normal sort of African lions. But one must remember that land bridge that existed between Africa and Europe. And Morocco is a very interesting place because it's got remnant populations of Eurasian wild boar, grey wolf, and even a red deer. So it's the only place in Africa you can actually find those species occurring naturally. And the rest of those populations have been introduced. And there was even at a time a population of wild boar running around the Western Cape of South Africa, brought in by Cecil John Rhodes, as well as fallow deer. Oh, I thought I saw movement. I think it was just wind. As you can see, very, very flat cats. Janet, Lynn, and Aaron, in response to the sexual dimorphism quiz, is saying it's probably to look bigger and protect their necks in fight. Now, that is a side sort of development from it. So if you look at sort of the evolution of different things, and lions are very unique when it comes to cats. And the reason that the sexual dimorphism has probably come about is because they're social. And yes, for fighting to protect their necks, yes, to look bigger, but leopards fight, wildcats fight, serval fight, but none of them have developed this massive mane, this complete change from the other cats. And there were quite a lot of cave lion species, and they didn't have manes, but all those cats are solitary. So it's they're not 100. You can never 100% say for sure, but it looks like the development of a mane has been a direct result of being a social predator and having to look good for more females and having to compete with more males. So it is correct. But it's due to the fact that they became a social predator. Now, the reason lions became a social predator, now that is also a very interesting story. Now, again, it's nothing you can say for fact, and there's various different theories out there about why lions are social predators. And most of it is to do with competition. And one of the things lions used to have to compete with were human beings, as well as hyenas. And modern-day hyenas, modern-day lions, modern-day humans all evolved at about the same time. And at that time, there was giant hyenas that were the size of waterbuck, but also solitary. There were saber-toothed cats, double the size of it, or about the size of male tiger now, but also solitary. So these smaller predators adapted or us being one of the smaller predators, adapted to sort of have a more general role, and in becoming a group, we're able to defend these larger predators and actually cause their extinction. And it's really fascinating. There's some wonderful theories, and of course, it's a lot of it's speculation, but it does make quite a bit of sense to me. And we will chat about it in depth as we continue on the safari. And hyenas have a very interesting sort of relationship with man. Now, 9 times out of 10, if you walk into a lion during the day, man is the dominant diurnal predator, and they're gone. They run like a bad smell. They just disappear into the bush. And whereas a hyena will sort of look at you, sort of half run away. He knows you're not that fast. He's not really going to take too much worry. Even at night, hyenas will become a lot more brave, but they'll never openly attack you unless you're sleeping. Now, hyenas have evolved to pick up our rubbish. They're the rubbish men. And we are such a messy species because we don't have those developed bone-crushing jaws, and we've relied on our brain. So we'll eat around the bone of the animal that we've killed in the throat of our shoulder. And hyenas, and that's how dogs became domesticated as well, because we're so messy. But in Africa, the hyenas have evolved to pick up scraps, and that's why they have a very different instinctive response to a human being on foot than a lion or a leopard or an elephant, who we are sometimes a direct threat to. We are the dominant diurnal predator. But also, we've never really tried to eat hyenas. Very smelly, can't imagine they taste too nice. So we've never actually actively attacked hyenas, and also because they've never openly attacked us unless you've been silly and stepped out in the open. But where there is a lion at night will try eat you. And we will try eat waterbuck and impala and everything else. So they have a very distinct and different response, and it's built over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, how the animals respond to you on foot. And I find it incredibly fascinating. It's one of my favorite sort of pastimes to read up on and see where all the different theories are leaning. And of course, the wonderful thing about sitting on the outside and reading all these theories, you can take pieces of each and what makes sense to you. Because I don't think anyone can be 100% right about what happened 200,000 years ago. And the lions have not moved an inch. So they are still very much snoozing after their huge bout of activity 10 minutes before we went live. And then giving us the runaround through the drainage line while we were live. They have now decided to rest up. Now, they probably haven't moved in an hour. So there's a good chance, especially in this cold weather, that they might start moving. Although they might wait for it to be a bit darker. And if that's the case, as we move closer towards the end of the safari, I might give Jamie a call, as we're not equipped for nighttime following of lions, unfortunately, on Maggie the Jeandre. But we've still got some time before then, and we will continue to play the patience game, which is possibly one of the most important tools out in the bush, is to be able to be patient with sleeping cats. And quite often, all you get is sleeping cats, but there's that chance that you might see them on the hunt. Hi Wesley, welcome on the safari. Wesley's wondering, will lionesses ever hunt with their cubs? Most definitely, Wesley, although the cubs are more of a hindrance. Now, there's a lot of people who think you have to teach animals how to be animals. So you have a lot of these, I'm going to be very careful what I say, people who claiming they need to look after lion cubs, teach them how to hunt, which is absolute twaddle. That is all instinctive. It is built in. And often cubs are more of a hindrance than a help in the hunt, and they often are made to stay behind by the females. But you don't need to teach a lion how to hunt. All he needs to do is get hungry, and then they will know how to hunt. But the cubs will follow. Often they are sent back with a snarl. Well, it looks like she's raised her head, but I think that's possibly just to put it back down again. Yes, there we go. And she does look very comfortable. I'm going to move forward so that thorn bush isn't in your way. I'm going to wait for Taxi to finish moving behind me. Here we go. Where's Taxi going? I can't see in my rearview mirror. But this is an absolutely exquisite animal. The amount of power that is stored in those muscles, the latent energy that a lion possesses. And they can go from flat like that to absolute speed and power in just a few seconds. So Jessie is wondering, do any other animals, apart from humans, enjoy mating or mate when they are not, when the female is not in a state of estrus? There's certain animals that have been known to masturbate, baboons, vervet monkeys, but generally won't mate outside of estrus. The only wild animal that mates a lot outside of estrus is used to be called the dwarf chimpanzee or the bonobo. Now the bonobo have developed a very interesting way of life. So they evolved originally from a normal chimpanzee, but they've been separated by the Cross River, and they live in a very selective part of the Congo Basin rainforests, the same place where you can find carpi and Congo peacocks, two of the rarer creatures out there. Now bonobos, instead of fighting, will mate, and that's also one of the only other animals that has same-sex relations with each other. So instead of fighting, when there's a problem in a bonobo community, they'll have a mass orgy, and with up to 25 individuals involved. And it is possibly the only other animal outside of human beings that is known to do that. There is some sort of tendency that's been shown in certain of the primate species, but it is very much a primate thing to mate while not in estrus, or to, I'm trying to think how to put this in a delicate way, to find pleasure in one's own company. But that's very much a primate thing. It's not really through to the other animals. But bonobos are well documented and well known for doing that. Now, before I start blushing, let's look back at the lions. Now, Roger's asked a very interesting question, saying, if the lion was not a social predator, would they be in danger of going the same way as the saber-toothed cat? Yes, I would definitely think so. Now, the main reason for that being is that hyenas, or spotted hyenas in particular, and lions fill the same ecological niche. They're after the same prey species on a base level. So yes, so if lions were all of a sudden now to become non-social predators, the hyenas would outcompete them completely and probably wipe them out. Not so much the males because of their pure size, but the lionesses and the cubs would be constantly harassed. And one must remember, if every time you take something out of an ecosystem, it changes it completely. And lions are probably a social predator because of the development of other social predators at the same time, namely human beings and spotted hyena. Now, not even the slight movement on the lions. Very, very cozy. Now, I really don't want to leave them. I've just got this feeling that they're going to move in not too long. But while we continue to play the patience game with the Nkuma and Birmingham, let's go see what Jamie's been up to.
So guys, we've been racing to a sighting at the, not racing actually, we weren't even going that fast to be completely honest with you. We were going at a slightly faster speed than we were going at to respond to Karula, who is standing, or was when she was called in, standing at the camp sign, the DRC camp sign. So that's where our main camp is. At which point Rusty started going and I was just hit in the face by a smell of something burning. She seems to be okay now, but I've opened up the hood and the hood, hey, I even used it automatically this time. The bonnet, as South Africans and the English might say, but the Americans and others say the hood. I opened up the hood and she doesn't smell great. I can't work out exactly where the damage is coming from out here. So because Wendy is not doing so well, we can't really afford to lose Rusty either. I'm going to quickly try and get her back to Opa. I'm really hoping he's around. And that Steph will be waiting there to, like an angel, waiting to help me out in terms of making a decision, because I don't want to damage this vehicle any further. And vehicles are not meant to go duk 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 duk. And she stopped doing it now, but I'm worried that it's the fan slipping into the fan belt itself. So we're going to very slowly, I just did that whole patch while I've been talking to you in neutral, just letting her carry herself. We're going to take the hill nice and gently. And hopefully, since Opa's house, or Opa's workshop is right next to the DRC, you never know, Karula might make an appearance as we attempt to get Rusty double checked. Here we go. She seems fine now, but that was definitely not a healthy smell. It was definitely not a good smell at all. Oh well, as you know, our vehicles twice a day, every day, get driven around a reserve. It's not easy suburban or city driving. It's seriously tough, often off-road driving, and that means that things get broken, things get damaged. It just is the way it is. And we're going to slowly cruise towards the workshop. You might see us going past on the dam camera, because I'm going to take the shortest route I can. While we do that, while we limp home in a sort of sorry state of affairs, let's go back to Brent and the lions.
Now, it seems like a complete conundrum. Not conundrum, sorry. What would be the collective noun for a collective noun of errors? Now, Maggie the Jeandre is, of course, a temporary vehicle. It's Wendy is busy being rewired. And Maggie the Jeandre is not equipped to deal with rain, which has just started falling as well. So we will try to stay out as long as possible. I'm trying to look. We've got a towel. And Jeandre has got some stuff. So we'll try and make a plan to stay out as long as possible. But it seems to be one of those cold winter's afternoons. And the lions look quite comfy though. Oh, and the babblers have arrived. Where are they now? Babble, babble, babble. Still quite far away. They've been taking their time getting here. Now, I've just heard that Queen Karula was spotted very, very briefly for about 30 seconds before diving into, or not diving literally, but walking into those little river systems near the Gallagher camp, which is, of course, near impossible to get our little normal cars in, and with this car, even less impossible. Now, what I'm thinking we're going to try is, now that we're the only car here, we have these lions all to ourselves, is to change up the position again, maybe get a front-on view of the Amber's closed eyes, because we're not going to see those amber eyes at the moment. Now, and say when, Jeandre? We've got very closed eyes of the big cats at the moment. Now, as we've been saying, they can absolutely change in a split second to become a very, very active animal if something happened to meander into them. But in this cold, windy weather, a lot of the prey species are going to be trying to minimize their movement. Now, firstly, because it's cold, but more importantly because it's windy, and the wind affects their hearing, their smell, and it makes it a lot more difficult for them to detect any predators. And now, in a couple of ways, it's become a little bit harder for the predators, as you can see with the drought and the dry season in its grips. There's very little cover. But what it also has done is the fact that a lot of the prey species are not in their best condition. So you can start to see, I saw some of the impalas I drove in today starting to show a little bit of ribs, and the ticks seem to be taking quite an effect around the neck. So a lot of those species are going to be a little bit easier to catch. And droughts are the time of plenty for the big cats. When you've got good rains, good grazing, it's the time of plenty for the herbivores. But it is now carnivore season, as the buffalo and zebra and all the other herbivores have to often move quite big distances between where there's grass left and where the water is. So it is nature, though. So a lot of people tend to get quite upset, but it is what happens, and nature works in cycles. And it's natural to have large die-offs of animals. So the buffalo population might be a bit too big, so a drought will knock 10,000, 20,000 of them. But they bounce back very quickly with good rain. Now, the last time we had drought this bad, this is actually worse though, was in 92, 93. And the greater Kruger at that stage had about 35,000 buffalo, and they lost 22,000 of those buffalo. But between, when the first good rains came, between 94 and now, so just over 10 years, 12 years, the buffalo population has bounced back to 50,000. So nature's in this constant ebb and flow, and it's always going to be changing. And it looks like it's changed. Unfortunately, the rain seems to have gone that way. So that's a good thing. So we will soldier it out with the lions. If Karula does pop into a place where someone finds her and we can follow her, we might leave the lions, but at the moment they don't have a visual, so I'm going to stick with a cat. Or 2 cats in the hand is better than 1 in the bush. The wind is very gusty today, so go through little lulls, and then now we've got a big gust coming through. You can actually hear it come from the valley across. So before the wind, it's just starting to hit us now. You can hear it coming from a good 300 meters away, and the rustle of the leaves. Now what amazes me is that in this sort of circumstance, I can barely hear a thing that's not very close to me, and I've got quite good hearing, but the lions will be able to pick up the difference between a sort of a foot stomp of a zebra and a little branch falling on the ground, and at vast distance, which often we cannot. Just trying to see if I could hear anything. I can just make out some francolin in the distance, and it is incredible. I'm just going to listen again. Oh, now, Captain Seafness would like to know if lions are as grumpy as normal house cats. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't think so. Well, normal house cats are probably grumpy because they're so well treated, and probably if it left them to their devices, they'd be a lot less grumpy. And quite often the reason that normal house cats can be perceived as grumpy is because there's an overpopulation of them. So if we look at wild cats, which they descend from, wild cats would have a pair of wild cats, or would be very similar to sort of a leopard. Sort of there'd be a male who had domain over multiple females. Now, with human beings domesticating those cats, those territorial boundaries are gone. So maybe they're grumpy because they're in constant competition and scent marking and trying to defend their little patch. Let me just listen to the radio quickly. Just trying to see if they found Karula again. No, they haven't. They're trying. So she's gone into this river system. And it's very, very thick and very, very difficult to get a vehicle into. Do you hear that? Yeah. It was a cough. I think there's a game drive vehicle on the way. Now, strange enough, I was at home where my parents live, which is about 80 kilometers as the crow flies from here. And I was with them, and I was sitting out on the edge of the riverbed editing photographs, and a big troop of baboons came past. And one of the baboons had a cough. And I sat there, and eventually I was watching them. And the one baboon was sitting on a termite mound going... He wasn't actually holding his hand up, but he was going and sounded just like a person. There we go. Who's coming to join us? Who was coughing? It's Mike from Cheetah Plains. Oh, her head was up. Her head's up. Come on, Amber. Time to get moving. Enough of this laying about. It looks like she's just testing the wind again. You almost want a big herd of buffalo to accidentally stumble in here. But, of course, whatever was on the wind was not entertaining enough to make her stand up or get more involved, so she's gone back to sleep. Oh, heads up again. Hello to Charlotte in Port Elizabeth. Charlotte would like to know whether a lioness is able to refuse a male lion's advances or not. Well, Charlotte, she can try run away, but eventually the male might become very aggressive with her, and it does happen that she might get beaten up a bit. So quite often lionesses will almost, if they are in a pseudo-estrus, they will sort of a fake mate, and we saw that with the young Nkahuma lioness and one of the Birmingham boys. He thought he was mating, but he was missing the mark. So there are ways to get around it, but they can't actually sort of turn down the advances of a male lion. It's detrimental to the pride. You don't want a bunch of very angry male lions running around. You'd rather have them being a little bit more calm. Oh, his head's up now. What have you heard? No, nothing. Almost want a nice big soldier termite to find somewhere soft to bite, at least get some action out of them. I don't know if any of you will remember, it was just before I went on leave, we were down on Cheetah Plains with the quarantine male leopard, and he was sleeping on a termite mound, and a soldier termite climbed into his mouth and bit him and sent him leaping off the top of the termite mound. Unfortunately, these two are not on a termite mound. They look very comfortable. Now, if we look at the back of the lioness's neck, and she's lying at quite a well, not really a strange, but position. You can see that black line in the middle, where the fur is a bit darker. So you often see the prey species, impala and stuff, fluffing themselves up when they're cold. You can now actually see that on that lioness, how she's fluffing it up. And what she's doing is she's catching air between her skin and her fur and creating a little bit of insulated warmth, a little warm blankie. But what I really love when you see them lying at sort of these slightly more different angles, you can actually see the muscles there and how incredibly strong. There's almost no fat on a wild lion. I mean, the top athletes in the world wish they had a body fat with a ratio, what is it called, ratio or percentage that a lion, or male or female lion in its prime would have. Oh, there's another raindrop. That one hit me in the middle of the forehead. Stay away, rain. Hi, Lily. Lily is 8 years old and lives in New Mexico. And from what I hear, New Mexico is quite a wonderful part of the state. It's quite warm. I'm sure I'd like it there. Now, Lily's wondering how big is a male lion's claw. I should have brought my male lion claw with me. I actually have one, but Lily, on my fingers, which are quite big, look, it's probably about that long, but it's quite a bit wider and obviously a lot sharper than my finger. And you must remember, with lions, they're able to take that claw back inside, so it's incredible. But when they're not running or grabbing onto something, those claws are inside, so you don't actually even see their claws on their footprints. Now, Lily, if you've got a house cat at home, you can actually see that on the house cat. I don't recommend trying to make a house cat extend its claws, because it would probably scratch you very badly. As we've discussed, house cats tend to be quite bad-tempered creatures, and they only like to be played with when they decide to, not when you decide it's a good time. But so Lily, I'm trying to think in inches, probably 2 to 3 inches long, and very, very sharp. The end of a lion's claw is sort of as sharp as a needle point. Now, well, you can't really see, but if you have a look at the lioness, her head is on one of her paws, and you can see those dark spots there, and that's where the claws will come out of. Now, a male lion is substantially bigger than a lioness, about 200 pounds heavier. So a very big lioness can reach up to about 150 kilograms. On average, they're around 120 to 125. A big male lion can reach up to 250 kilograms, which is very unusual. I think that's just under 600 pounds. I'm sorry, maths is not one of my strong points. So male lions need to be that much bigger to defend against other male lions. And you'll notice that with most of the cats, that the males will be substantially bigger or heavier, maybe not, sometimes not even as tall, but just sort of more well set. I've seen some very tall female leopards, the same sort of height as a male leopard, but when you look at that male leopard, he's just really thick in the shoulders and in the neck. But not to the same degree as lions, of course. So we are waiting to hear what's happening with poor old Rusty. Now, hopefully all will be sorted shortly, because of course we don't have any capabilities for nocturnal viewing on this vehicle, but we will stay out as long as we can. Wow, imagine that. Just as I mentioned it, it seems like the mechanical gods are smiling, and Jamie is out and about, so let's go see what she's got to say.
Oh, it seems to be working okay. Well, Rusty hasn't made any more strange noises. James, being James, has come up with an ingenious idea as to what might have caused the problem. The blades of the fan that had snapped off a little while ago might have got caught, and that was what was causing that sort of harsh thunking sound. Now, of course, I don't say that with any tone of surprise. James is very, very clever and has a great deal of common sense, and I think that sounds entirely plausible. So barring anything further happening with Rusty, if it happens again, then we will obviously retire her for the evening and try and sort her out. In the meantime, we're going to see if we can't find Karula to show you, the Queen of Jeandre, the female leopard. Right, so here's what's happening. We've got one vehicle patrolling the 2-track around the power lines. Here we go. I'm not sure whether that's Texan or Aubrey over there. One of the other Jeandre vehicles is hanging about by the Gallagher pan. Okay, so things might have just changed. We need to try and keep Rusty within Voyatella's signal. We're going to try and keep her on the 2-track. We should be okay from here. Oh dear, it seems as though the gremlins are attacking in full force. They obviously enjoy this weather, and it's causing a little bit of chaos. But let's go nice and slowly and just see if Karula isn't around here somewhere. If we go any further north along this road, we are going to disappear off your screens. She was right up close to Mike's house when they last saw her, moving into the drainage line system. And this is one of her absolute favorite patches around this area. And it's got lots and lots of little hiding places for a leopard like Karula. All kinds of spots for her to disappear into. So keep your eyes peeled, because she may well be somewhere in this vicinity. She definitely is in somewhere in this vicinity. It's just a matter of seeing if we can't spot her. Hello to James Richard, who would like to know if I managed to ask Steph about our bright green scorpion that we had this morning on Bushwalk. And I know that I did promise that I would try and find out a little bit more about it. Unfortunately, the day didn't go according to plan. Steph has since gone off, apparently, to a meeting elsewhere. So unfortunately, James Richards, no, I haven't. But I promise you that as soon as I have managed to gain some information on that scorpion, I will share it with you as soon as I know a little bit more. And of course, it would be difficult for all of you to be able to do because you couldn't see it properly, and it was hidden in the bark, but when we first saw it, it was right out in the open, right clearly visible. So we should be able to identify it and work out which particular scorpion it was. And that, of course, is the magic of Bushwalk, is finding all sorts of unusual creepy crawlies and other such things that a lot of us, most of us, have never seen or heard of. And I know that Steph always remarks upon finding things that he's never seen before, which is, it's always the incredibly exciting aspect of the job. Okay, Karula. We're also, of course, listening very intently for alarm calls. This is the one place where it gets exceptionally tricky to find leopards. And the thing that will give her away is the flick of the white tail. There's some drongos chirping away, but it doesn't sound like they're alarm calling. They're just chirping. Oh, where would Karula be on her way to? She may well be hunting, in which case she will be nigh on impossible to find. And Karula has a tendency to pick one direction, as we've spoken about before, and walk in the complete opposite. But there are 3 of us looking for her, so we've definitely got much higher chances than we might otherwise. Oh, sorry, little one. Okie dokie, hello. You're a surprise. Okie dokie. Okay, it's alright. It's okay. I don't want you to be upset because I don't want your mommy to be upset. It's alright. It's okay. Don't worry. Okay, we are going to move backwards. Not because I feel in any way threatened by our sweet little elephant. Sorry, boy. But because we are in the way of the rest of the herd, and we spoke before about stressed out females, and the fact that the wind is making them nervous. There's a big herd of elephants walking through here, and I'm right in their path. So I'm just going to shuffle backwards so that they've got a space to walk through. There we go. Hi guys. Hello, hello. Here's a big cow at the back there. They're all perfectly calm and feeding, so they've relaxed completely. But as I said, as sweet as it was to have that little young calf charging us, making himself look very big and very scary, it sometimes brings mom along as well, and especially when the whole herd of elephants would like to come this way, it's just polite for us to move away and out of their space. Earlier on we had the wonderful rumblings of the elephant herds, and we got a question from one of our younger viewers about whether or not they were growling at each other. It was because they were angry. And we said it's not because they're angry, it's because they're talking to each other. Now, Captain Seamless, what you have read is absolutely correct. You've read that somebody's got an itchy foot, itchy ankle. You've read that elephants can hear each other up to or over 2 miles away, and that is totally true. The distance is not completely known. There's a bit of debate about how far elephant low-frequency rumbles can travel, but generally the answer seems to be exceptionally far. So they are capable of producing rumbles that not even human ears can hear. Really, really low rumbling calls. And those are what they use to communicate. And those vibrations travel through the ground and are picked up by other elephants, believe it or not, through their feet, through the soles of their feet, that they then interpret. But yes, elephants can talk to each other over enormous distances. I look forward to the sort of ever-increasing knowledge that we gain in terms of our understanding of these magnificent animals, and I look forward to the moment where we will know a little bit more. We'll never fully understand them, perhaps, but where we will be able to know a little bit more about what each vibration means and what the elephants are saying to each other. It would be a truly, truly marvelous moment. Oh, yummy! Mouthfuls of leaves. We have a slight issue here, guys. I just need to talk to Taxon. How's it? How are you? She that side? Okay. Guys, Karula is coming to the waterhole. Copy that. Thanks so much, Aubrey. I'm just stuck behind some love here. Guys, we're just going to move out of the way for Taxon to come past. Because he got space to squeeze past. Yes, he does. There we go. Can you squeeze past me? Yeah, go ahead. Hi, guys. There you go. So Karula is on her way towards the water. We do find ourselves with elephants between us and her. And I don't want to push them out of the way, so I'm just going to wait for that female to turn, and then we will be able to go and approach. Hello, big girl. Obviously, I don't want to upset her in any way. Copy that, thank you. I'll be around shortly. Okay, we're just going to wait for this lovely lady to move herself into the block slightly. Thank you, girl. Alright, girl. It's okay, big girl. We're not going to push past. Don't stress. Don't stress. Oh, we do have a relatively tricky situation to navigate here. I'm just trying to work out exactly what we can do. Karula is drinking in front of us, but the Ellies are obviously between us and her. Okay, so she's coming straight north, so we might get a view of her here without having to upset the little elephant. There she is. Perfect. We didn't have to move at all. Well done, Bryan. There we go. The beautiful Queen of Jeandre. Oh, photobombed by an elephant. That's not something you see every day. How wonderful. Okay. The Ellies have moved away, so we can follow her. We can get a little bit closer. Just wait for this lovely old lady to make sure she's behind the tree. And her little one. And we'll go and catch up with her. There we go. So a little bit of patience paid off. Very big girl. We don't have to stress them or frighten them in any way in order to catch up, because she popped into our frame, which is awesome. So she's going in here. I'm just trying to work out where would be best for us to follow. I can't see her. Can you, Bryan? Either. Yeah, she's going through here this way. Let's go around this way. She's moving. How awesome is this? Queen Karula, the lions, and some elephants just to top off our afternoon. Okay, let's just go nice and slowly around here. See if we don't spot her in the drainage line. I always know. Let's just stop here. And Taxon's a little way ahead, Aubrey's a little way ahead. I always know when these animals come in through here that life's about to get very, very tricky. And I can hear Aubrey up ahead. I'm not sure, I didn't have visual. I'm just standing by here. Let's just wait and see if she doesn't pop out. Okay, so lots of you very, very excited to see the great Queen of Jeandre, who, true to her sneaky nature, has actually decided to change direction and to start moving this way. And you're all wondering where her cubs may be, and of course she's probably out hunting and checking around for them, trying to find food. That being said, we don't know that for certain. So she may well be coming back to them. She might have hidden them somewhere here. Oh, she's there. Here she was. Now she's moving into the drainage. She's just disappeared as we came through. There she's slinking back towards where we were before, so we'll go back that way. Okay, well done, Bryan. Oh. Okay, let's try and do this backwards, shall we? Oh, you're holding on there, Bryan. I'm doing everything backwards with my eyes wide open. There we go. Whew, spot to turn around. There she goes. Jogging on her way. She does look empty-bellied, and she's very much off in search of a meal. And this could well be our last visual of her as she goes into a basically impossible area for us to follow, particularly with Rusty feeling the way that Rusty's feeling. Awesome. Hello, girl. Good luck with your hunting expedition. We're not going to try and follow her through the spot. We'll try and circle her, but we're not going to try and follow her. First of all, I think she's empty-bellied and she's hungry. And second of all, with Rusty being in Rusty's state, we actually cannot risk damaging it any further. Just in case you're wondering where Brent has gone, because the Gari repeater has gone down, he doesn't have any signal. So he was still with the lions, they were still flat. That's what's happening there. How awesome is that? And a big thank you to Taxon and Aubrey for helping us keep track of her. She was coming in this direction, straight into this drainage line, this river system. And let's just keep an eye on her. You got her. There she is. Well spotted, Bryan. Awesome. I need to... Taxon is right behind me, and Aubrey's guests haven't had a chance to look at her, so I need to show them where she is. Just hold on one moment. We're going to go... trying to work out exactly... We've still got visual of her. It looks like she's gone flat for now, in between all of those guarri bushes. Okay, there she is sitting, looking off into the distance. We need to turn around. I can't do an approach from here, so I'm going to just reposition. The angle that we're at, it's all a little bit tricky right now. Sorry guys, we will reposition to get you a view in a moment. I just need to turn around a little bit further up here. And I don't want to risk damaging Rusty. Thanks so much, Orbs. Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, I told you. Okay. Just chatting to one of the guests who we told him that if he was patient, Karula would be there, and so she is. I'm so glad that they've had a chance to see the Queen. Okay, let's see if we can't get another view. I think what we should do, since Taxon and Aubrey are there, I think maybe we should try to go... Oh, we can't. We can't actually go into this drainage line, can we? We're going to lose signal if we do that. Oh, this operation this afternoon has become relatively difficult. Especially with Rusty smelling the way that Rusty's smelling. The temperature gauge says we're fine. Let's try from this angle. Might be a bit easier for me to see where she is. Just need to listen to Aubrey. It looks as though she might have started to move on. She's not. I don't think she is where Bryan last saw her. And Zumi Joyce, you wanted to know what direction Karula is moving in. She did go towards the Galago Pan. She actually had a drink at the Galago Pan. She's now moving a bit further to the north of the Vuyatela or the Juma Pan. She's in the drainage line system that is north of the camps. And we absolutely are not going to be able to get ourselves in here. I think that Aubrey's guests do still have a view. It looks as though they're looking at her. But for us, this is the position that we have for now. Unfortunately, I don't see any way around it without us blocking other people's view. So, a brief but wonderful... Oh, there we go. That is definitely the best shot we have ever had of Karula. Well done, Bryan. I present to you a leopard in the wild. Quite possibly one of the best views we ever did have. How marvellous. Well done, Bryan, because that does give us a very clear demonstration of just how well that camouflage of hers works. I don't think her cubs are with her. I think that she's left them somewhere and she has gone hunting. Sorry, I'm having a good chuckle because the most extraordinary moth just flew by and I tried to catch it and I nearly fell over. It's gone, unfortunately. I didn't manage to catch it for you. I think she's hunting. She's also been regularly marking her territory. So the last time we saw her in this area was on Sunday, where she was marking after fireside chat. And I think it's important for her to make sure she maintains territorial boundaries as well. Look, I think that's her face on the right there. I'm not sure though. I'm not 100% convinced. And definitely because Taxon and Aubrey helped us to find her, it's definitely important that we take... There we go, that is her face. Or a little bit of her face. Yes, there we go. There was an edge of an ear there. I hope you were all paying close attention. You see the heat waves rippling off Rusty. This is a bit concerning. Okay. I think we might be able to reposition for a different view. I'm not 100% convinced though. But we will be able to take Aubrey's position once he moves out. As I said, he's got guests on the back that are so incredibly excited to see Queen Karula. They've been watching the show every morning and every afternoon, South African guests, and they've been just dying to meet a character that they have watched, to see her in real life. While we attempt to find a slightly better view of the lovely Queen of Juma, Let's go back to Brent, who finally has some signal and is still with his lions.
As you can see, it's getting dark and ominous at the moment. The wind is picking up. Oh, the male lion has lifted his head. Now, literally, that is the first movement we've had while we've been away. Unfortunately, the Gowrie repeater went down for a little bit, but it's back, and Vim and James have changed the batteries. And as you can see, the male lion has lifted his head, and the female has not moved an inch, apart from moving her neck around and facing us again. She's still very much fast asleep. Now, no. Oh, what was that funny little shake? Sort of a funny little paw shake. It's a shiver. He's cold. And down goes the head again. So you literally came across at the exact right time when the male decided to lift his head, even if it was for a brief second. Now I'm going to try and maneuver the car. We don't have spotlights and things on this vehicle. I'm going to try and utilize the headlights. Hey, big boy. So there we go. Let's see how it looks. Say when, Jeandre. Good? You happy? And let there be light. There we go. See, we'll always make a plan to stay out as long as possible. That's quite nice light, don't you think, Jeandre? I'm quite impressed with my lighting skills. Looks like there's a ray of sunshine, but there isn't, I guarantee. Have you heard that clicking? It was just me snapping a shot. I suggest you do the same and share your screenshots with us on our Facebook page, SafariLIVE, or on Twitter with the hashtag SafariLIVE. And of course, there are numerous groups, the Juma Junkies, with SafariLIVE, Wild Picks, and we encourage you to join and share on those groups as well. But we have gone back to snoozing. There's nothing that can sleep quite like a big cat. How's it, Andrew? Very well, thank you. Long time now. I'm very well, thanks. Good. Hi, everyone. So, Pallavi would like to know if we can predict when a lion charges. Now, you can most of the time. There's some very telltale signs. With the big cats, one of the most important ones is the swinging tail. So they flick their tail from side to side. Their ears will go flat. They'll change their body language. Now, if you have a domestic cat at home, a lot of those telltale signs, obviously on a much smaller scale, can be seen. And a lion will try in its power, do everything except charge. And most animals don't want to charge you because there's the potential, if they get into a charge or a fight with you, that they might hurt themselves. Oh, there we go, heads up again. Oh, he's a tired kitty. Head's gonna go down. There we go. Head's down. Hello, Gracie, who's 8 years old and obviously one of our biggest SafariLIVE fans, and we love having Gracie on Drive with us. And Gracie says, welcome back. Thank you, Gracie. And she says, do I have any new stories? Well, only one, really. Actually, two, maybe. I don't know, Jamie might have told you. When we were down, we went to a friend's wedding near the beach. And we got to see lots of whales jumping out of the sea, which was quite fun. and some, no, we didn't see any dolphins this time, but we did see lots of whales and lots of seabirds diving and eating fish, which was nice. And we did that all from the comfort of a balcony, which was quite pleasant. And then actually yesterday evening, a little bit earlier, at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, my mother and father went on a game drive, and I decided I was just going to go for a little walk. And I got to sit on the road, and I had 3 wild dogs come right up and give me a sniff. And then they carried on in their hunting. And it was quite funny, because around the corner, following the wild dogs, was my dad driving after them. And he wanted to know if I wanted to come on. I said, no, I'm going to continue on my walk, and I let my dad continue following those wild dogs. We went on to chase some impala, but no one could find if they caught them or not. But there's a nice story for you, Gracie. Other than that, I behaved myself this leave. Not too many adventures, just lots of bird watching and book reading and photo editing. Now, I wish I looked as comfortable as those lions. I've got my blankie out already, and it's quite chilly. I'd guess it's probably, what do you reckon, Jeandre? 12 degrees Celsius? 12, 13 degrees Celsius? So, what's that, 40 something. Bethany's a very observant SafariLIVE viewer. She says, fun fact, you can always tell how cold it is here at Jeandre, depending on how the lions sleep. You know, or the cat sleeps. If they're curled up in a ball like this, then you know it's cold. And if they're stretching out and trying to be as open as possible, you know that it's hot. Well, there's Bethany's fun fact, and it's completely true. Very observant of you, Bethany. And you can see how their ears aren't twitching nearly as much now. The flies have gone to bed. There might be the few last very hungry flies left feeding off them, but the wind's picked up, temperatures dropped. The flies are probably sleeping on a bush close by. Oh, it is incredibly windy now. So James Dungard is asking if the reserve my parents live on has a wild dog den on it. It does currently, and it's about to have a second. So the big pack of wild dogs have split, and a new pack of 3, which is the ones I saw yesterday, have split from the main pack, and the female's pregnant, and she was actually digging in a termite mound about 500 meters from my parents' house, so we're hoping she uses that as her den. So there are actually sort of 2 packs of wild dogs on that reserve at the moment, and both about to den. Unfortunately, our wild dogs that we see regularly here, one pack has denned in the Manuleti, and the other has denned in Singita. So not too close, and we're going to probably have to wait about a month and a half, 2 months, before those puppies become mobile, and we might start seeing them again. Nice to still have you with us, Monique. And Monique would like to know, is there a point in a lioness's life when she stops mating or stops coming to estrus? There is, and if I remember correctly, it's probably 12 or 13 years old, but I think it depends on the individual. But normally, by the time a lioness gets to that age, the reason she's not coming to estrus is because she's not in good condition. In captivity, where they're fed regularly, and that they can breed up to about close to 20. But in the wild, I think it's probably a lack of nutrients and teeth falling out, so they're unable to come to estrus because they're just not in tip-top condition. So we're going to stay with the sleepy kitty cats for now. In the meantime, let's go see what Jamie's up to. It's cold.
We are on our way to take over from Brent's sleeping kitty cats, since we definitely are more set up and prepared for nocturnal filming than Maggie the makeshift Jeandre is. Right, so we left Karula for a couple of reasons. One was she was very clearly, the most important being she was very clearly hungry and hunting, and I didn't want to go in after her in a very, very thick block and disturb her in any way, disturb her concentration with lights on and so on. And I mean, in that sort of area it would be impossible for us to follow her without running the risk of interfering in some way. And then to add to that consideration is poor Rusty's health. We definitely don't want to add any additional pressure and run the risk of Rusty breaking down somewhere in the middle of the vegetation, away from any roads, without any way of getting back. That's not something we want to risk either. But for now, because Brent's backpack at some point is going to stop working and because he doesn't have the lights on his vehicle, we're going to make our way across and take over from his lion sighting. But still absolutely magical that we got to see Queen Karula. Even if it was a little bit of a short sighting, it was nevertheless always a privilege and a pleasure to get to see her. And that is where we are off to now. So before everything finishes up, and before Brent disappears off your screen, I think he'd like to say goodbye to you all, since it is his first drive back.
So heads up, there's some yawning, and hopefully Jamie is on her way here, because it does look like they might get moving shortly. So this is, oh, there we go. We're going to look for some stretches, some yawns, and just in case it does die, I'm going to say toodles. And I hope you've enjoyed this evening's sunset safari, and I'll be back with you bright and early for the sunrise safari. But we are going to stay with these lions for as long as possible until we disappear. And look at that, isn't that just gorgeous? Hope you guys are getting some nice screenshots. Andrew has added his spotlight to our headlight. That lovely side lighting there. So, let's have a look. Jeandre says we should try kill ours. See how's that look, Jeandre? Put ours back. Okay. Jeandre has told me to put ours back. I don't think it's not quite dark enough for the side light completely. But there we go. We can see the grooming starting to happen, and it's a good precursor to movement. Yawning, grooming, getting up, stretching, urinating. Now, hopefully, they are successful in their hunting tonight and remain on Jeandre, so we can catch up with them on the sunrise safari. Oh, lovely. Come on, give us a big yawn. No, a head scratch will suffice. Isn't she just gorgeous? Or both of them are. Oh, itchy ear. They do look like they get immense enjoyment out of a good scratch. And there we can see why allo grooming in lions is so important. That big male trying to get around to his back and struggling. There comes a yawn. Everyone ready? Yay! Lovely big yawn. Well, Pierre is obviously a SafariLIVE serious fan. It's 1 a.m. in Australia, and Pierre is watching these lions. Pierre would like to know, why do they have black on the back of their ears? Well, Pierre, it's for non-verbal communication. So it's for visual communication. Cubs are able to spot that and they follow their mother. Also, while the lions are hunting, and they're able to move their ears, and there's a lot of non-verbal communication that takes place between lions. So that's what the black's there for. It's a signaling mechanism. So it looks like Jamie has arrived in the nick of time. According to Jeandre, we are flashing battery end. Battery end. Which is obviously not something we want to see. So from Jeandre and myself, it's been absolutely spectacular having you. It's great to be back in the bush, and I can't wait to go out again on the sunrise safari. So while the lions look like they're about to move, we're going to send you back across to Jamie, and we're going to head back towards camp and maybe give some of the camp staff a chance to come have a look at these lions.
While Brent heads back towards camp, we've got the last few moments to spend with these amazing lions. Oh, Ephraim had spotlighted them beautifully for us. 1 second. Let's just see. Hold on 1 minute, everybody. My apologies. I need to just fix my microphone, which apparently has slipped down my cap. Just bear with me. I'm going to take your spotlight off for 1 second because I can't do this with one hand. Oh, they're going to think about mating. Although it looks as though Amber Eyes is definitely quite tired of this whole process, and what she really wants, from what I understand, is a jolly good meal. At this point, he's going to phlegm and grimace for us now that he's sniffed her urine, and perhaps he'll get the message that she's actually... Here we go. That beautiful open-lipped snarl that the lions give. And he's probably, maybe, well, I'm hoping he's getting the message that actually... Oh, no, she's getting away, buddy. I can't turn on my vehicle lights for now, because there is another vehicle that I'm absolutely going to blind. If I do that, he's running to catch up with her. There he goes. Let's try and stay with him. There they are now. She's stopped for the moment. We have to go back the way we came. Well, we arrived very well timed. Sorry guys, I need to drop the spotlight. Perfect timing for us. Because the lions are just about to get up and move. You good there, Bryan? Is that okay? Cool. Everybody watch your head, that one was thorny. I'm going to try and stay with him as long as we possibly can, but we've mentioned before, we can't run the risk of injuring Rusty. I don't know where the female went, but the male is right here. Hello, boy. So wonderful, guys. You've all been providing us with extraordinary screenshots of our lions yawning and stretching, so that's marvelous to hear. Do you know that they've just gotten up? He's here. The female is there. So that burst of extraordinary activity from our consorting felines has been to settle down once again in a different spot. Basically, she got up to urinate and then went and lay back down again. Oh, that was quite exciting, considering they've all of a sudden stopped moving once again. Let's go forward a little bit. We need to just make some space for the other vehicles that are coming in here. Oh, Wesley. We've been watching Amber Eyes as she has mated with 2 Birmingham boys now. over the last week or so, and during that entire time we've been on Jeandre. And you wanted to know, will lions stay in the same place while they are busy mating? How's that for you, Bryan? Perfect. And the answer is they generally do. So mating cats don't move as far as they would usually. Oh, we're getting another yawn from the lioness. She hasn't settled. She's not going to settle for long. I think he just blocked her from leaving once again, and she kind of lay down in an exasperated defeat. Sorry, Wesley. So mating cats generally don't move as far as others do. That's because they've got plenty to occupy them. Oh, look at that. Another extraordinary yawn, and a beautiful glimpse of those orange eyes that Amber Eyes is famous for. Well, mating lions, in my experience, can move a little bit further than mating leopards. And basically what happens is, especially when the female's reaching the end of her estrus cycle, all she wants to do is try and meet up with the rest of her pride, and he's just not letting her. Now, of course, she started off her estrus cycle mating with a different male before swapping to one of the other coalition members. And what that means is that whilst she's relatively exhausted, the newcomer, or the male that took over from Blondie, has not quite reached the conclusion. He's not as exhausted as she may be. And I think this is... I'm not actually sure. I haven't had a chance to see which male lion this is. Either way, he's definitely far more enthusiastic than she is about the whole situation. And thank you to Angie. There we go. We've got the answer to our question. Apparently this is Birmingham boy number 2. So the one that we saw... Was it yesterday, Bryan? It was yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
It was yesterday. The one that we saw yesterday morning on the sunrise safari, mating with Amber Eyes. So it is Birmingham boy number 2. So he's only just stepped up to the plate, so to speak, and started mating with Amber Eyes. So that's why he's demonstrating this level of enthusiasm. A big yawn from him. And he's going to try and initiate. Is it going to work? Oh, she's not impressed with him. She just wants some food, Shame. She's looking very hungry. And no, she is totally done at this point. He's initiating, and she is running away from him. Another big yawn, and off they go. Him again, blocking her, chasing her, trying to convince her that he is the man for her. And I don't think he's doing a very good job. He's going to do some marking, some urine spraying. Now they moved right behind the vehicle, so I had to give them time to reposition. So before we started up. Alright, I know where this goes. This goes into a drainage line system. We're going to try for one last view, but unfortunately I don't think we're going to be able to stay with them for the end of the sunset safari. It's just that little bit tricky. Oh, they're moving so fast. And Tasha, given our poor female's level of reluctance, and my apologies, I just need to concentrate. Watch your head there, Biba. Oh, I think we missed it. My apologies for not looking at you. I'm just trying to make sure we don't do any further damage to Rusty. You're wondering, of course, as most concerned people are, when this male is going to leave the poor female alone, since she clearly isn't interested. And probably tonight. She'll probably ditch him tonight. He's been doing some phlegm and grimacing, some checking of her urine, and he's going to get the message at some point. So when we saw them yesterday on the sunrise safari, it was very clear to me that she was relatively reluctant, but she was responding only in kind whenever he went and approached her. At this point, she's not even responding in that way. Okay. They've gone into the drainage line. Chances are they're gonna pop out on the western edge of quarantine. For us, that's a much longer journey. We can't do it in a straight line, so we're gonna go back and around towards that side. I know exactly which path they're gonna take. Well, no, I don't. I suspect I know what path they're gonna take. And Ophira summing up the state of affairs, I think, beautifully. And Ophira's basically said, well, poor Amber Eyes, Blondie's gone off. He's gone to go have a nice meal somewhere with his buddies. He's tired of her now. And he's left her stuck with Birmingham boy number 2, with this guy, who has only one thing on his mind, and doesn't really know to take into account the fact that Amber Eyes probably hasn't eaten properly in about 6 or 7 days. So I don't think she's feeling very chuffed about life. Okay, this game path is going to lead us straight to the western edge of quarantine, or lead them there. Tasha, on the subject of poor Amber Eyes' misfortune in being lumped with 2 males, I guess you raise a really good point, because we know that males fight over access to the females. Most male mammals do that. So why on earth then did Birmingham boy number 2 get a chance to mate after Blondie did? Would they have argued over it? Or did they fight over it? What would have happened? How does that work? And the answer is male lions and coalitions are actually quite surprisingly, and this is in general, not always, but they're surprisingly tolerant of the attentions of other males. Not when they're courting initially. When one male comes along and he finds a female that's in estrus, he will court her, and he will be very aggressive towards any other male lion that approaches, or actually anything that approaches, including occasionally vehicles and other members of her pride. He tries to keep them away from her. And even if another male approaches, they generally recognize the sort of first come, first serve rule, because there's so many lionesses that they know they will have a chance to mate. But what often happens, when a female goes into estrus, a male starts mating with her, he actually kind of runs out of steam before she does, and he might leave before she is out of estrus, at which point, as was what happened here, I imagine, Birmingham boy number 2 came in and took over. So I think Blondie left of his own accord. I don't think there was much squabbling. When we saw him at the end of it, Blondie was on his way. He'd left wherever she was, and he was making his way towards the contact calls of the rest of the pride. Are we going to catch up with them before the end of the sunset safari? We should do. We've explained the way in which Amber Eyes, or how Amber Eyes came to be mating with 2 different males. Our beard, the logical extension of that is that it will provide some additional protection to her cubs when she does have them. And yes, you're right. With any cat, mating with multiple males automatically increases the investment that those males have in her cubs, regardless of whether or not they are actually fathered by them. They're going to think that they are. So she tricks them into thinking they are. They may be, they may not be. Strangely enough, there's new research that suggests in certain areas, about somewhere close to half of the cubs that are fathered are not fathered by the dominant males in the area, which means that the lionesses are doing a lot more of that. Ooh, let's dim these lights. There's a load of impala on quarantine, which is where the lions are heading towards. That means, yes, the lionesses are doing quite a bit of this. Not, mating with as many males as they possibly can. Right, I suspect, I'm hoping, they're going to have popped out at this game path here, close to the bush dinner site on quarantine clearings. And as our lioness, the one thing that might preclude us from finding them is the sheer desperation on the part of Amber Eyes to get away from this male. And Cheryl has suggested perhaps a heavy frying pan or a rolling pin might be the best way forward for her to help her rid herself of him. He certainly, I will give him 10 out of 10 for persistence. Having seen him yesterday, I'm not going to give him 10 out of 10 for anything else, but definitely 10 out of 10 for sheer persistence. Okay, I'm hoping they came out somewhere here on quarantine, but she was moving so fast we might not even have got round in time. I wonder if she's managed to duck him yet, or at what point she will. Oh wow. Now the sky decides to clear. Let's just stop for a moment. I'm actually going to switch off. We've got an extraordinary view, and it gives me a chance to just double check that I haven't missed anything. How's that for an evening scene? And just a sliver of waxing moon. Absolutely beautiful. No lions, just several herds of clustered impala hiding away, huddling in terror, and a really beautiful moon. Look at that. I think I said this the last time we saw a waxing sliver of moon. Ah, look at how cool that is. Craters and everything. And doesn't that just look like the Cheshire Cat smile in Alice in Wonderland? I think I said this the last time we saw a crescent moon. And this camera providing us with absolutely amazing detail. Craters of the moon is all, and all. As the sun has descended and brought evening upon us, it has illuminated this beautiful sliver of moon for us to look at. And the wind blowing, very little ambient light, so a dark, dark night. I think it's safe to say the animals of Jeandre, the Sabi Sand and the Kruger National Park in general, the predators are going to have a field day. So Karula and our hunting lions may well be successful. The prey, on the other hand, are probably going to have a relatively frightening night ahead of them. And we shall unfortunately have to wait until morning to unravel the mysteries of whatever has occurred, and we shall do that on the sunrise safari tomorrow morning. So as we come now to the end, a big thank you to Bryan for all of his fantastic camera work as always, for bearing the cold with us, and also for helping me have a close examination of the engine. Thank you to Lou and Kirsty in Final Control. Oh, I'm going to get into trouble. Thank you to Lou and Kirsty, and thank you most of all to all of you for your questions, comments, and company. Have a wonderful day, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.